And welcome to Year of Eternal Love, ACIM workbook for students, lesson 66. My happiness and my function are one. You have surely noticed an emphasis throughout our recent lessons on the connection between fulfilling your function and achieving happiness. This is because you do not really see the connection. Yet there is more than just a connection between them. They are the same. Their forms are different, but their content is completely one. The ego does constant battle with the Holy Spirit on the fundamental question of what your function is. So does it do constant battle with the Holy Spirit about what your happiness is. It is not a two-way battle. The ego attacks and the Holy Spirit does not respond. He knows what your function is. He knows that it is your happiness. Today we will try to go past this wholly meaningless battle and arrive at the truth about your function. We will not engage in senseless arguments about what it is. We will not become hopelessly involved in defining happiness and determining the means for achieving it. We will not indulge the ego by listening to its attacks on truth. We will merely be glad that we can find out what truth is. Our longest practice period today has as its purpose your acceptance of the fact that not only is there a very real connection between the function that God gave you and your happiness, but that they are actually identical. God gives you only happiness. Therefore, the function He gave you must be happiness, even if it appears to be different. Today's exercises are an attempt to go beyond these differences in appearance and recognize a common content where it exists in truth. Begin the 10 to 15 minute practice period by reviewing these thoughts. God gives me only happiness. He has given my function to me. Therefore, my function must be happiness. Try to see the logic in this sequence, even if you do not yet accept its conclusion. It is only if the first two thoughts are wrong that the conclusion could be false. Let us then think about the premises for a while as we are practicing. The first premise is that God gives you only happiness. This could be false, of course, but in order for it to be false, it is necessary to define God as something He is not. Love cannot give evil, and what is not happiness is evil. God cannot give what he does not have, and he cannot have what he is not. Unless God gives you only happiness, he must be evil. And it is this definition of him you are believing if you do not accept this first premise. The second premise is that God has given you your function. We have seen that there are only two parts of the mind. One is ruled by the ego and is made up of illusions. The other is the home of the Holy Spirit, where truth abides. There are no other guides but these to choose between, and no other outcomes possible as a result of your choice but the fear that the ego always engenders and the love that the Holy Spirit always offers to replace it. Thus, it must be that your function is established by God through his voice, or is made by the ego which you have made to replace him. Which is true? Unless God gave your function to you, it must be a gift of the ego. Does the ego really have gifts to give, being itself an illusion and offering only the illusion of gifts? Think about this during the longer practice period. Think also about the many forms the illusion of your function has taken in your mind, and the many ways in which you tried to find salvation under the ego's guidance. Did you find it? Were you happy? Did they bring you peace? We need great honesty today. Remember the outcomes fairly and consider also whether it was ever reasonable to expect happiness from anything the ego ever proposed. Yet the ego is the only alternative to the Holy Spirit's voice. You will listen to madness or hear the truth. Try to make this choice as you think about the premises on which your conclusion rests. You can share in this conclusion, but in no other. For God himself shares it with us. Today's idea is another giant stride in the perception of the same as the same, and the different as different. On one side stands all illusions. All truth stands on the other. Let us try today to realize that only the truth is true. In the shorter practice periods with which would be most helpful today, if undertaken twice an hour, this form of the application is suggested. My happiness and function are one because God has given me both. It will not take more than a minute, and probably less, to repeat these words slowly and think about them a little while as you say them. And for these insights as it's stating, the last few lessons, there was a theme, that there is a function, and that your function is happiness. That it was speaking about the split mind from God. Because that we are only one mind, but this split mind, we do have one side with the ego. It's fear-based thought system. It is always engendering fear, always manipulating you into believing in the separation, that we are separate from God. We are separate from love. We are separate from our own happiness. And we have to construct these specialness about us to get from other people, to make us feel validated, to make us feel happy. Yet, the Holy Spirit reminds us, the inner teacher, our divine true self will always remind us that we are loved eternally. That doesn't go away. That doesn't go away. There is no condemnation. God doesn't forgive. And that sounds a little strange. God doesn't forgive. Because he doesn't know what forgiveness is. There is nothing to forgive, because to forgive, that would mean condemnation. There is no condemnation by God. There's no judgments. All of the children of God are special, and none of the children of God are special, meaning we are all loved equally as the one Son of God. We are one in this unified field of energy linked by the one mind, this divine intelligence. We are getting closer to the truth. This is why when we first started these lessons, we had to break down all the meanings that we have attached to each and everything. We have to psychologically rewire our mind because it's colored by the past. Jesus is reminding us in this lesson that the ego wants to construct many different stories to talk us out of the truth. It doesn't want us to get stronger. It doesn't want us to know ourselves, to know who we are. We want to deny that there is a God, deny that there is a divine intelligence that is all-knowing and all-purposeful and guiding and directing us for our happiness and joy. But psychologically, it was asking us to check our premises. We all have these. When challenging times come up, we sometimes have these stories that God plays cruel jokes. There are no cruel jokes. It's asking us to check our premises. Love cannot give evil. And what is not happiness is evil. Feel that. In your silence today, during these practice periods, truth will come to you. You will feel that. This is why we have to have practice periods, to remind us to be still, to come back to the truth. We have always known this. It has just been buried deep between all the fear, all the conditioning that has gone on in our life? Do you want to be happy, or do you want to be right? I think you want to be happy. My happiness and function are one. I want to thank you for joining with me today. This is a year of eternal love. I love you. And I hope you'll join me for tomorrow's lesson. And until then, God bless.